Hello, child sacrifices, and welcome to the Binding of Isaac. This will be a full playthrough, which means we will be going to the very end, the final boss, because there's like 4 of them in this game. I'm also going to be explaining what this game is, how the mechanics work, what it's like, what are some interesting things about the game. For those of you who haven't heard of it, it is an indie game, came out about a year and a half ago, made by Edmund McMillan, the same guy that made Super Meat Boy, so you know this thing's going to be freaking hard. I'm sure a lot of people already know about this game since I have already made videos on my channel about it, but this is going to be more informative. This is post-commentary, so I'm actually know what's going on and what I'm talking about. And even though a lot of people do know about this game, even if I get one more person interested that wasn't interested in it before, then my job is done. So I am Nathan/DarkBlueWolf, whatever the hell you want to call me, and let's get started. Here we have the title screen. That golden god thing right there, that picture just means I did everything really available before the DLC came out. The Wrath of the Lamb DLC, I have that there. Just showing off the challenges, but let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to explain all the mechanics first, and I'm going to explain the specifics, like which character I chose, what the floor is, what these enemies are, all that stuff. I'm going to go over that later. For now, I'm going to go over what this game is. So, at its core, it's a roguelike game. Roguelike games are randomly generated dungeons, or dungeon crawlers, excuse me, in which you travel through multiple floors until you get to, say, the final boss, and you beat the game. Usually, there are very limited checkpoints. These games tend to be very, very difficult. This game is no exception. This game is very hard. There are 0 checkpoints in this game. If you die, you start over from the beginning. Now, of course, a full playthrough only takes about 45 to 50 minutes. If you practiced a little bit, which I have about 81 hours in the game so far. Pretty much done almost everything available at this point, but even still a very difficult game. Now, there are about 6 floors to go through, depending on which path you take. There's actually 2 paths that you can take, depending on which items you have with you, or how many times you've actually beaten certain stages. But we're actually going for the full playthrough this time. We're getting to the final boss with the Polaroid. I'll explain all that later, but that is what we're doing. Now, this layout probably reminds you of the Legend of Zelda original, because those dungeons look quite similar to this game. Quite similar. They've got that widescreen format. You're just fighting enemies, trying to open the doors, get through the next place. The only difference is, I don't remember if that game was actually randomly generated. I don't think it was. No. The rooms were the same every time. This game, they're different every time, so you're going to get a different experience each time to play it, which is actually really cool. It's why it's got a lot of longevity for me. As far as the story goes, basically what's going on here, if you can tell from the name of the game, it's actually a biblical reference referring to Abraham's son Isaac. The story is Isaac lives in his house with his mommy, dear old mommy, mom. He kind of draws all day while his mom watches Christian broadcasts. It's fun times. It's paradise. Then one day, Isaac's mom gets a message from God, telling her to sacrifice her son in the name of the Lord. So she tries to obey. She takes out a knife, and fortunately, Isaac sees her coming and jumps into the basement where we are now. That is the story. So there are a lot of biblical references to Christianity/Judaism, not so much Islam, from what I can tell. Mostly Christianity and Judaism. But it's good stuff. We just got mom's lipstick. That gives us more range. I'll explain later. But obviously we're living a very, very sad life, which is why instead of bullets, our bullets are tears, basically. We cry at people, and they die. That's the story. That's the story. It's good stuff. Now, the character I chose here, there's about, I can't remember, I think there's 7 characters that you can choose from once you've unlocked everyone. I've chosen Cain here. Cain has 2 hearts instead of Isaac's 3 hearts to start off with. He can always upgrade more, but he starts with 2 hearts. He starts with slightly higher attack power than Isaac, but the real reason I chose Cain is because of his passive trinket, which is the Lucky Foot. It's an item that basically makes you more lucky. And what luck does in this game, it is so useful. You'll find pills throughout the game that have certain effects. With characters with normal luck, those pills can sometimes have good effects, sometimes have bad effects. It's really, it's luck. But when you start with Cain, all your pills are going to be good because he has that Lucky Foot ability. So that's really, really useful. Also, you run into slot machines and beggar kids and I don't know what the switcheroony kids are called, but you have a lot of opportunities to gamble in this game. And Cain's Lucky Foot makes that really useful. So I'd say Cain's probably my easiest character to play this game with, which is why I'm playing him right now, just so you guys can see how he plays. He's really fun. Now I'll go over the items that we actually have as of now. First off, we have Little Steven. That's the item that we have trailing. That's the dude in the little black outfit trailing behind us. I guess he's a gimp a little bit. That's Little Steve. He shoots teleport. He shoots telekinetic tears from behind you. Those actually home in on enemies, so you don't have to aim those too well. But that's what the purple bullets are firing from behind me. Next off, we got Steven from fighting that boss. He increases our attack power, which is why instead of blue tears, our tears are now red. So they're actually blood tears. Blood tears are always stronger than normal tears. It's great. It's good stuff. Besides that, we got the teleporter as our secondary item. What that does is it teleports us to a random room every time we use it. Recharges every 2 rooms that you complete. Now, most people say, hey, teleport is completely useless. I don't want to go to random rooms. There's no point in that. And to that I say there's actually a few hidden uses. Well, not hidden uses so much, but uses that people don't really think about that I would like to explain in this video for certain items. So a teleporter can actually teleport you to secret rooms, or item rooms, or shop rooms, basically saving you a bomb or a key or effort. Any of the above. I mean, as for secret rooms, you might not even know they're there, and then just if you teleport right into it, hey, you don't even have to, look for it. You don't have to waste bombs trying to get there. So that's why every time my teleporter is available, I use it, just in case I manage to get lucky enough to teleport into that secret room. Now, there are actually 2 secret rooms per floor, so the chances are that aren't that bad, but you still do feel that gratification when you find a secret room with the teleporter. Now, as for the pinky eye up there in the upper left-hand corner, that is a trinket, which means it's a passive bonus. It can be swapped out at any time, just like the secondary item or the Q item. But the pinky eye gives us a 10% chance of firing a poison tier. Poison obviously damages enemies over time. It's good stuff. Now, you're probably wondering why I fought the boss so early on in the stage before exploring the rest of the floor. Most people wait to fight the boss until the end, and usually I do too, but in these early stages, the bosses really aren't that difficult, so I figure, hey, I'm already at the boss. I'm not really going to take any damage, I don't think. I might as well just get that upgrade, that new item, see what it is. Hopefully, it'll help me with the rooms to come, Because, I mean, at this point, you can beat the boss and then come back and do the rest of the stage later. As opposed to the later stages where once you beat the boss, you actually can't explore anymore. You just have to progress to the next stage. Excuse me. But that's not the case for this one. So anyway, as you can see, we just use the teleporter to teleport into that shop. Shops are places with 3 items in a room where you can buy them with the money that you've collected. Usually they're locked, but if you teleport straight into it, you don't have to use a key on it. You can see what it has to offer. In there was a ladder, which I would like to have, and I, in fact, will get later once I get 11 more coins. But for now, I'll pass on that. There's a golden chest. We need a key to open it. Thankfully, we have 4, so we can bomb that rock over the gap, open it. Sometimes those golden chests have upgrade items in it, like a health up or a speed up. Sometimes they just have coins or bombs or keys or something like that. It's really a gamble. Really, a lot of stuff in this game is a gamble, which I feel makes it more interesting. It always makes it more interesting. So as for the blue hearts in my health bar there, those are called soul hearts, as opposed to our regular red hearts that we can replenish. Pill's so useless. Anyway, as opposed to our red hearts, which you can actually replenish, blue hearts, which are, like I said, the soul hearts, those don't come back after you lose them, so be careful. Now here's our next upgrades. The mini mushroom gives us a higher speed and a higher range for us to shoot our blood tears. Pretty useful. A smaller body means you won't get hit as easily because you just have a smaller hitbox. Now I can actually start talking about the bosses. This is the Blighted Ovum. He's an upgrade to a previous non-DLC boss called Gemini, I believe it's called. This guy only comes in the DLC. You just have to chase the guys chasing. You have to shoot the guys chasing you and kill him. Now, these cathedral rooms slash god rooms will occasionally appear once you fight a boss, and they always have really good items, I mean, most of the time. There we got the Guardian Angel. He basically acts as a bullet shield, so any bullets that are going to come at us have a chance of being blocked if they run into that Guardian Angel there. It's honestly very, very useful, especially for the final 2 bosses in this bath. I mean, you'll see, this thing probably saved my life. This thing in the next upgrade that we're getting, or the next bullet shield that we're getting, so useful, so useful. Now that room below me, that is a gauntlet room. I could actually have the name wrong, but that's what I call it. They're gauntlet rooms. If you're at full health, you can enter, pick up whatever items in there if you so desire, and then you have to fight 3 waves of enemies. Now these are almost, I feel like they're almost always worth going for in the first 3 floors. It is up until the womb. At that point, I don't think it's worth it. But, you know, normal chests, or sometimes you'll find an upgrade item in here. Those are usually worth going for, especially if you practice, you know, the enemy patterns, how each enemy works. It's not really difficult to go through without taking hits. You basically just get a free item in exchange for your time. As I can see, I didn't take a hit during that whole thing there. Now, that card I just picked up is part of the tarot card system. Now, tarot card, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. I've heard it pronounced tarot, or I can't remember. I actually had a friend who was into doing that. But basically, there are 15? No, 12, 13. There's a certain number of tarot cards that you can find throughout the world. Each of them has a different effect. You can use them whenever you want. It's always good to memorize them, which I have memorized their effects. So, 6 the lovers, that grants us 2 red hearts when we use it. So it's not terribly useful, as opposed to, oh, what's that one called? The Hierophant? I hope I pronounced that right, the Hierophant, which grants you 2 soul hearts on use, which is always more useful. And maybe I'll explain the mechanics behind that later, because it's a little complicated and I'm not too good at wording that. But it's always better to find a soul heart than a red heart. Always, always, always. It's also better to find an eternal heart, but we'll get into that later once we find one. And I'm surprised I didn't take a hit there. So surprising. Oh man, so we are actually on the 2nd floor here, and I know technically this is the 4th floor because we fought 3 bosses so far. But I like to call each set of 2 sort of areas 1 floor. So for example, we had the first 2 quote, what would we call them? First 2 areas, I suppose. That makes up the basement slash the cellar. It's kind of interchangeable. The cellar is sort of the harder version of the basement. Came with the Wrath of the Lamb DLC, but they kind of are in the same order. One can replace the other. It's kind of the same thing. So basement slash cellar. That was the first floor. Now we are in the caves slash catacombs. Catacombs are the harder version of the caves. Once again, coming from the Wrath of the Lamb DLC. And if you have the vanilla game and you haven't gotten the Wrath of the Lamb DLC, I highly recommend that just because of how much content it adds into the game. It's like $2. Probably the best DLC. It's probably the most expansive DLC that I've ever gotten personally. I know some people have other DLC. I'm sure Elder Scrolls DLC are pretty good. But I've only really played Skyrim. Anyway, like I was saying, this is very expansive, very good DLC. So in these harder versions of the dungeons, you'll occasionally find bosses slash just harder variants of the enemies. So for example, that snake-like guy that we just fought, his name was Larry Jr. He's ordinarily a boss in the basement, but we fought him here. He's very easy. You don't have to worry about him too much. He can be unpredictable sometimes, but it's not really something to worry about. But we're progressing through pretty well. We got 21 coins here to buy whatever we want. Watch out for those green explodey guys. They kind of look like buttholes. There's a lot of Freudian imagery, let's call it, in this game. So if you think something looks like a butthole or a penis or a vagina, that's because it was meant to. Yes, a secret room, because we needed 9 more coins, 9 more pennies. The max amount of money you can have at one time is 100 pennies slash $1. If you aren't familiar with the pennies to dollar system slash nickels slash dimes, whatever. Excuse me. But it's a very good game. Very, very good game. So I believe, did I go over why I chose Cain? I did. I already talked about why I chose Cain. Alright. Alrighty then. So we'll go through. I need to remember what I need to talk about. That room in the left there, that's basically a blood sacrifice room. If you walk over those spikes there, you have a chance of receiving a certain item. I never ever do it because it's almost never worth it. You have to put in a lot of health to actually get something from that, and it's usually not worth the sacrifice, which is unfortunate, but you know, the more you know. Anyway, in this game, we have mini bosses, and one set of mini bosses are, are the 7 sins. We have wrath, gluttony, pride, lust, sloth, envy, and who's the last one? There's one I always forget the last one because it was wrath. That's right, wrath. Okay. Right. So here we have wrath. Actually, why did I forget wrath? That's who we're fighting right now. Wrath uses bombs. He actually emulates the Bomberman game. If you ever played any of those, you can see the layout. He just kind of lays bombs everywhere. Tries to get you with them. They don't have really explosion radiuses like Bomberman does, but you know, kind of a similar idea. That was actually Super Wrath, which was a souped up version of normal Wrath. A little bit stronger. The bombs actually gravitate towards you instead of just sitting where they are. So he's a little bit different, but still very easy. Now in this room we just bought the treasure map, which allows us to see the layout of the entire floor, which up until the depths, not terribly useful, but once we get to the womb and beyond, incredibly useful because you want to get to the boss as quickly as possible. I'll explain that. I'll explain why later. Anyway, this is the poop here, the worst item in the game. Just summons 1 poop when you use it, recharges every room, but really there's not really any use to it. It's just pretty bad. That pill I picked up earlier as well, that gave me the Balls of Steel effect, granted me 2 soul hearts. Now the boss here, Pestilence, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Once again from the Bible, there's pestilence, war, death, and I told you, I just always forget the last one in the series. He's red, isn't he? Famine. Right, we have famine. But this is Pestilence. He throws those green exploding bombs everywhere, summons flies, slash the little worms on the ground that shoot bullets at you. He's pretty easy. You just gotta watch out for the green corrosive stuff that he leaves behind him. But I actually really enjoy the design of the horsemen because they ride their little toy ponies around, and it's adorable and just like weird at the same time. Anyway, he dropped a cube of meat, as all horsemen will. The cube of meat is another bullet shield, like I mentioned before. It kind of does the same thing that the Guardian Angel does, in that it stops any bullets from hitting you if it comes into contact with it. Now, if you get 2 cubes of meat, you get you'll keep your bullet shield, except your bullet shield actually shoots blood tears once in a while. Actually, not once in a while. It's pretty often. I'll get back to that in a second. But this is a blue candle, one of my favorite secondary items in the game, just because of how quickly it recharges. This is another reference to the original Legend of Zelda, because that was an item in Legend of Zelda. In that game, you can only use it once a room, but in this game, you can use it about once every 7 seconds or so. So that's why I like it so much. It does a good amount of damage, and it recharges really quickly. Now back to the cube of meat. I explained what the second one does. If you get 3 cubes of meat in one game, you lose your bullet shield, but in place you have a little meat boy running around who attacks enemies for you. So he does damage, and he doesn't really act as a decoy because nothing attacks him, but he does give you some extra damage, so you can just run around and not do anything and still hurt enemies. Now, if you get 4 cubes of meat, you'll get the final version of the Meat Boy, which is Super Meat Boy. He does the same thing as the 3rd version, but he's stronger and I believe slightly faster. That's really the only difference. And I was trying to see if you can kill the fire with the blue candle, which you cannot, so it just kind of bounces off. Now, you gotta watch out for those red fires there, because they actually shoot bullets at you, which kind of threw me off the first time I saw it. So watch out for that. Yellow fires don't do anything. Yellow/orange, whatever they call it. They don't hurt you, unless you walk into them, obviously. But they can hide coins beneath them, so it's always worth checking. Same thing with poop. They can be hiding coins beneath them. So if you have the time for it, try and break open as many as you can. Maybe get some extra money from it. So, another reason I like the blue candle so much is because it actually does something I like to call frictional damage. What that is it works especially well on bigger enemies, it sort of, how do I explain it? It hits the enemy multiple times depending on how many times it passes over the enemy. So say every, you know, tenth of a second, it'll, actually it's probably quicker than that, say every 500ths of a second, it'll register damage against an enemy. Now, if the enemy is big enough to the point where the fire is going to travel across that enemy for more than, you know, a tenth of a second, then that blue fire is going to hit that enemy more than once because of that sort of that damage time, how it's going to hit every, I don't know actually what the time interval is, but it's probably something like 0.5 seconds, or not point, like 500ths of a second, excuse me, something like that, I'm sure. So that's why I like it so much, because it hits enemies multiple times with this, quote, frictional damage. You saw it, it hit Super Pride there multiple times. Now that was Super Pride, not just normal Pride, he was a souped up version. Normal Pride's smaller, he isn't pink, he drops normal bombs in the room, he tries to attack you with them, and he's really very similar to Super Pride. Just a Super Pride drops homing bombs, and that little X-ray beam he does is a little bit bigger, but still very, very easy. Most of the sins are just really easy to kill, not really a problem. Not too much of a problem, but here we are doing a gauntlet again, because even though we're in the harder version of the depths, which is their necropolis, I'm feeling pretty confident at this point because I have my blue candle. So even though we don't have that much health, really not too worried about that just because of my attack power. Because like with the blue candle, I feel you don't really even need attack power increases because you've already got a pretty good attack, and the blue candle doesn't get stronger from damage increases because it's a secondary item, so it's not really too important. Now that there's a slot machine, I would be using it if this were anything past the 3rd floor, but since we still have shops on this floor, I'm using it. Now that was a little trick there that you can do. You can, if you're quick enough, you can go between diagonal spikes like that if you're good. And jeez, there's just too much stuff to explain here. Alright, I picked up the Lucky Toe, which is a new trinket. What that does is it increases the chance of having a drop rate on in each room that you complete. Actually, I think it always gives you something. It always gives you some random drop when you complete a room, as opposed to the Pinky Eye, which fires 8 poisons here once in a while. I also picked up a tarot card there. I didn't get it. Oh, it was Justice, right? So it was 8th of Justice, which when you use that card, it summons about 5 random items around you. A key, a coin, a bomb, an active bomb, by the way, not a collectible bomb, a heart, and I think that's it, if I remember right. So I go ahead and pick him up very carefully there. Now the reason I use the fortune telling machine right there is because that drops either soul hearts, tarot cards, or excuse me, it drops soul hearts, tarot cards, trinkets, or my favorite item, the crystal ball, which I'll talk about in a second. But first off, in this item room, we get Celtic Cross, however you want to pronounce that. I actually prefer calling it Celtic with a hard C, but I don't know what the proper pronunciation is there. Wow, that was some lag. Anyway, what the Celtic Cross does is, if you, let's see, if you get down to, no, excuse me, it gives you a small percentage chance of activating a shield around you for about 10 seconds or so that prevents any damage. So it's pretty good. Now this boss here is pretty annoying. I can't remember what it's called for the life of me. But first you got to kill the heart if you want to damage this mask. Oh, it's called Mask of Vengeance, I think, something like that. But you have to kill the heart first, which isn't terribly hard. Afterwards, you have to kill the mask, which is really quite annoying. And if I didn't have the blue candle on me, I would be really, really annoyed because it takes a while. You can only hurt it from behind, if I remember correctly, because the front blocks damage. But thankfully, blue candle pierces, so you can go and just keep on throwing at him. Get some piercing damage just because it hits him from behind with that frictional damage that I mentioned earlier. I'm telling you guys, blue candle, it's a great item. It's a great item. Anyway, he's dead. We got some milk / breakfast. Gives us another heart to work with, which is always nice. Now we are in the Depths 2, which is where the original game ends if you haven't beaten it. This is where, if you're going through your first run, this is where you're going to have your final boss, because it's not going to let you progress any farther. Once you beat the boss of this floor, it's just going to stop you, give you the first ending, and let you try again. That's how it works. This game likes repetition. But some special things about this floor: it is the last floor that offers you a shop. It is also the last floor that offers you an upgrade room, because floors after this have neither of those. You can still find arcades, libraries, sacrifice rooms, gauntlets, that kind of things, but those kind of things, but you'll never find another upgrade room or a shop until your next playthrough. So be wary of this. Once again, we have to fight Larry Jr. here. He's silly. He's just a pretty easy boss. He never directly tries to hurt you. He just crawls around and hopes that he hurts you. He's a hopeful guy. But I figure I got 7 keys. Why not open this locked chest? Turns out to be a tarot card with death. What that does is once you use it, it damages all enemies in the room for a pretty good amount of damage. So it's pretty useful. That there was Greed. He appears sometimes when you walk into shops, which is really annoying, especially when it's in the depths too, because that's the last opportunity you have for a shop, which means you'll never get another shop. Greed's very easy. He just shoots 3 bullets once in a while. If you get hit, you drop a few coins, but you can just pick him back up. Occasionally he'll summon 2 bodyguards, the little jumping guys on him. Still very easy to take out, so he's nothing to worry about. He's really just more of an annoyance because he usually doesn't drop anything good. Occasionally he'll drop an item called Steam Sale, which makes all items in the shops 50% cheaper, which is absolutely useless if you don't have any more shops to visit. But I digress. Here's a card called the Two of Hearts, which restores your health. It either restores your health or doubles your current health. I can't remember what it does. It does one of the two, but I figure I'll probably stick with that since that's a little bit more useful than having the death card. Now these used to be my least favorite enemy because there was just something about their attack pattern that I couldn't get down. Because occasionally they'll do a Dragoon jump, is what I like to call them, because, you know, Final Fantasy IV. They'll do the Dragoon jump, where they'll jump up in the air, land where you were at their jumping points, and release 4 bullets in the direction, in the axis directions. It gets pretty annoying if there's 4 or 5 of them in the room, which there are, you know, usually when you see those guys. But if you play enough, you'll get used to their attack patterns and they don't become such a problem. These guys are pretty easy too. They're gluttons. I don't know the official names for any of these enemies, but they just shoot beams forward across the room. And this was pretty dick placement for items, or sorry, for enemies. These are the Screaming Fetuses. They shoot bullets at you. They fly. They teleport. Thankfully, I had enough manpower to kill them very quickly. So, like I said before, Cain's very lucky. Use every pill that you find. I got Tears Up. That odd mushroom gave us damage up. Obviously, higher damage. What Tears Up means is we fire tears more rapidly, which isn't terribly useful since we're using the blue candle most of the time right now. But still, it is quite useful since we can use, you know, both in conjunction there. Good stuff. Now, these guys are pretty annoying too. But the blue candle does do wonders against these guys here. You have to kill them, and then they turn into a pile of mush, and then you have to kill them again, basically, or else they regenerate. So, it's a little irritating. But, I can't believe I got hit there. Sometimes in this game, you just take dumb hits. You cry. It's not so bad when you're playing a normal character, but when you're playing the blue kid, who I lovingly call Q Kid, every hit just makes me rage. And I'll explain that why, because I actually recorded a playthrough with him. But as for that item there, that's a trinket called the Tick. Do not pick that up if you want the full and proper ending. Do not pick that up. And I'll explain why. To get to the full final ending, you have to be carrying a certain item with you called the Polaroid. It's a trinket, so we're going to have to drop the lucky toe to get it, but that's fine. We're going to get it from beating this boss here. Now, if you pick up the Tick, it gives you... oh, shit, I should actually explain this boss first. I'll get back to the Tick. This boss's mom, who correlates with the story that I told you before. Mom is basically the villain in this game. She's trying to kill us right now because she thinks God told her to, which, for all we know, God did tell her to, because in this game, God's kind of a jerk. But she is the boss of the depths, which if you are on your first playthrough, she will be your final boss. But you're not on her first playthrough. She's not too difficult. We kill her. You can see her attack patterns from that game with her there. Excuse me. I should probably go over her attack pattern. She'll stomp on her foot, or she'll stomp her foot on you occasionally. You'll see the shadow coming. She'll spawn enemies from the doors, the 4 doors around the room. Sometimes a hand will come out from one of the 4 doors and try and hurt you. But if you stay away from the doors, it's not really too difficult to avoid damage. So she's not terribly difficult. I remember the first time I fought her, I was shaking because it was just really hard back then, and now it's just, hey, it's just kill her again. Kill her again. Good times. Anyway, she always drops the Polaroid once you beat the cathedral 6 times, which is a stage that we'll be seeing later. We'll get to that later. But once you beat the cathedral 6 times, she will always drop the Polaroid upon defeat. The Polaroid is the item you need to access the final dungeon, the final floor, which I will be showing in this video. Now, the reason I said don't pick up the tick is because even though the tick does, it basically lowers boss's health by 15% as soon as you walk into a boss's room. That's pretty useful, but you can never get rid of the tick. So since you can only have 1 trinket at a time, and you need the Polaroid to access the final ending, well, basically, if you pick up that tick, you can't access the final dungeon because you can't have the Polaroid upon defeating the boss. And 1 second. Alrighty, this is a glitch that has been happening to a lot of people upon downloading Wrath of the Lamb. Upon entering the first stage of the womb, you'll get that weird Isaac, the Binding of Isaac is not responding. Looks like the game's about to crash. Now, if you wait about 30 to 40 seconds, the game actually loads, and the transition screen looks a little strange. And I've seen this, excuse me, I've seen this in a lot of other videos, so a lot of people are having that problem. It does fix itself. It doesn't crash the game, but if you don't know that it does come back eventually, then it would be pretty annoying. I can see how it would be pretty annoying, but oh well, deal with it. Now that is the My Little Unicorn item. We'll be seeing that 3 times because the game's like, hey, let's just give you the same item 3 times, and maybe one of those times you'll take it, which I don't in this playthrough. Actually, I don't. Maybe it wasn't this playthrough that I gave it to me 3 times, but there was one playthrough with it where it definitely just dropped 3 times. It's a pretty good item. What it does is once you use it, you start flashing rainbow and you become invulnerable for about 5 or 6 seconds. And when you run into enemies, you actually do collision damage, so you can just like run into an enemy and kill them for 5 or 6 seconds without taking any damage. Now, this is Skolex. He is a harder version of an earlier boss. Basically, he just jumps around the room. You gotta fight. You gotta shoot his tail there, which the blue candle is not very useful for. You just gotta shoot his tail. That's really all about it. He's very easy. Now, like I said previously, after you beat the depths, which is what we just got through, and we get to the womb, which is the 4th floor, the game stops spawning item rooms and it stops spawning shops, which is basically your entire reason for exploring the previous floors. So from this point on in the game, do not explore. You want to find the boss room as quickly as possible. That means you won't take as much damage, and you'll save some time doing that too. You may miss out on a few arcade rooms or library rooms, but honestly, they're not that big of a deal unless you have a lot of money, which I do have a lot of money, but I figure I'm feeling pretty confident at this point. I don't need to explore. I don't need to find those item rooms, or excuse me, I don't need to find those arcade rooms if there are any. I just want to save my health. I don't want to die. I want to get through this. That's my thinking here. And it's really going to save. That's why the map is so useful here. But let's see, we got 2 items here. Both are very good. First, I'll go over the first one. We got the meat, which increased the rate at which we fire tears. Also gave me an extra heart. In the God Room, we found the Holy Grail, which is an incredible item. What that does is it gives you another heart container. It also gives you the ability of flight. Now, flight is really, really, really useful. It has a few effects. First off, you move faster. That in itself, very useful. Second off, you can cross over gaps and rocks. You are no longer blocked by terrain. Third, you are no longer damaged by harmful terrain like spikes or corrosive material like these guys who drop them right there. If I didn't have flight and I walked over that red flashing stuff, I would take a whole heart of damage. But since I can fly, I can walk right over it without taking any damage whatsoever. Now you can see why flight's so useful, because these guys, I'm just able to hide in the rocks. They can't hit me with their bullets because the bullets stop at the rocks, whereas I can just fly right over them. That was actually Gluttony there. He fires a laser beam across the room, much like the Gluttons that we fought before. He also fires 8 bullets sporadically, but he's very easy. Sometimes he'll drop a less than 3, which is an item that gives you another heart container and refills all damage, or it just refills your health, any damage that you've taken. This here is Sloth, another one of the 7 sins. We're fighting 2 at once because we're getting into the more difficult parts of the game. All he does is he summons these little chasers sometimes, and he fires the green exploding bombs. That's all he does. So once again, fairly easy. Fairly easy. But really, it's just... like I was saying before, you really just want to get to the boss room as quickly as possible at this point, because at this point they will start spawning bosses regularly in normal rooms, not even as mini bosses. They'll just be there. Like, you'll have to fight a chub just because. And that gets kind of annoying, kind of difficult if they start spawning the more difficult bosses, which we haven't... No, actually, we are. Here's a difficult one, which would be a lot harder if we didn't have the Holy Grail. This guy's called Peep. He has corrosive material, which is already annoying. He'll fire a few bullets around the room like so, and he'll go to the bathroom like that, spray a lot around. He'll jump everywhere where you are. He's pretty slow, so that's not too hard to dodge. But the more damage you do to him, actually, I guess once you get a third of his health down, one of his eyes is going to pop out, start traveling along the room like that. It'll damage you if you run into it. Once he loses 2/3 of his health, he'll drop the other eye, which does the same thing. So he's actually pretty annoying. But thankfully, we had the Holy Grail, so we could basically dodge most of his attacks without having to worry about it. I have 81 coins. I don't remember having that much. That's ridiculous. But another thing about the flight, like I said, you can cross the gaps, so you don't even have to worry about unlocking stuff like that. Now this is Lust. All she does is chases you. That's literally all she does. She's probably the easiest of the 7 sins. Sometimes she'll drop Poison Touch, which if you collect it, it will basically, when you run into an enemy and you take damage, it'll give poison damage to that enemy. So it's okay. I actually don't like items that reward you for doing poorly. That's why I don't like playing as Eve, because that's exactly what she's good for. Eve is actually my least favorite character of the game, or at least the hardest character for me. So, oh well. This here is Chubb. I mentioned him earlier. He just charges at you. Occasionally he will summon a chaser, but he himself is just basically King Dodongo. If you lay a bomb, as soon as he charges, he will eat it and swallow it, and he will take some damage. I didn't really show it off here because I wanted to save my bombs for later, but you can do that if you want. He's really not too difficult to take out without the bomb strategy, but, you know, you can do it. So now this is the It Lives boss. If you haven't beaten the game, excuse me, let me rephrase this. Normally, on your first 8 playthroughs of the Womb, this boss is going to be called Mom's Heart. She is sort of, back before the Wrath of the Lamb DLC, she was sort of the true boss, true final boss. Now after you beat the game 9 times, Mom's Heart changed into It Lives, which is actually, looks like Isaac, fetal Isaac attached to some sort of, you know, veins and arteries and capillaries, attached to Mom's uterus here, which is just great. It's just great. What It Lives does is it summons enemies, much like Mom's Heart did. It Lives is basically just a harder version of Mom's Heart. It'll stay stationary, it won't move anywhere. It'll pop up into the ceiling after summoning a few enemies. But It Lives will summon bosses, most notably Chubb and Lord of the Flies here. It can also summon Larry Jr. if I remember correctly. But It Lives, in my opinion, is one of the easiest bosses in the game. So you don't have to worry about him. Now the Devil increases your damage for the room that you use it in, but I don't really care about that, so I'm going to pass on that. Stick with my health refill here. Now this is the second to last stage, the Cathedral. which was the first new stage added in the Wrath of the Lamb DLC. It is very hard. You can see here, now we're just going to be fighting a lot of mini-bosses slash bosses in normal rooms, kind of like we did in the Womb, but for the most part a lot harder. So we just fought a Greed there. This guy is called Widow. He is annoying. I avoid fighting him as much as possible. This right here. That is a 1-up shroom. A reference to Mario Brothers, obviously. Basically, most of the time, if you die in this game, you start from the beginning. But if you have the 1-up shroom, you can die and start back from the entrance room of the floor with full health. So it's actually an incredible item. I actually didn't end up using it in this playthrough, which surprised me, but it's always there as a safeguard. It's a very good item. You won't respawn with any soul hearts, but you will start with full health again. Now, I didn't talk about it, but one thing I'm doing here, one thing I actually just did a few seconds ago, is I used a bomb to open that door. Now, you've been able to do that the whole time. I just haven't used it yet because I wanted to save my bombs for this floor. Basically, if you don't want to fight enemies in a room, you don't want to finish them off because you know you're going to take too much damage from it, you just lay a bomb next to a door, open it right up without having to fight them. It's so useful. I don't know why more people don't, or I don't know why more people do it. It's a really good strategy for saving health. If you have the bombs for it, of course, which at this point most people do. And that's really the only way I get through this stage and the next stage, which is the chest. It's really the only way. I mean, I can't imagine doing these stages without that strategy. But let's see, here's a slot machine. I decided since we're so close to the end of the game, I'm going to gamble a little bit, get some stuff, hopefully get some good stuff. Since Cain's very lucky, like I said before, he usually gets some good drops. Some notable stuff you can get from this slot machine are pills, first of all, so we just got 2 hearts from that. You can also get soul hearts, you can get money, keys, bombs, active bombs, which can sometimes blow up the slot machine. You can get $1, which, like I said before, gives you 100 pennies, which at this point is, useless. But it basically just gives you stuff like that. What I'm mostly playing for right now are pills and soul hearts. Sometimes it spawns a fly like that, which isn't really a problem. But I am playing for soul hearts at this point since we're so close to the final boss, and I'm getting pretty worried. Sometimes it just explodes for no reason, which is kind of annoying, but what can you do? So there's a bloody penny. We don't want that because we want to be carrying the Polaroid as we defeat this boss on this floor. And that's how we access the final dungeon. Now, Cathedral, unlike the other stages, only has 1 area. It doesn't have 2 areas like the rest, which is good. Same thing with the final dungeon. There's only one area to it. Only one. I guess most people call them floors, I suppose. There's only 1 floor to it, which is at least there's that. At least there's that. Now that's the red patch. It drops hearts once in a while. This is the Headless Horseman. Didn't mention it before. He's not one of the 4 harbingers of the apocalypse. He sort of acts like them a little bit. You can see he's wearing, or he's riding the toy pony there, but he's not actually from the Bible, so he's a little bit different. He also came at a different time. He was released during the Halloween update. Horseless, no, not horse. Excuse me, that's TF2. He's just the Headless Horseman. So he's pretty easy. If you kill him as a boss, he'll drop a pony, which gives you flight, and it lets you charge once in a while. It is a secondary item, though it's not passive like the Holy Grail is, which is unfortunate. Leather Belt gave us speed up. Sometimes you can find that by beating bosses. Now this guy we actually fought before. I didn't get a chance to mention who he is. This is Fistula. He's a buffed up version of Fistula. He moves slower, and he drops exploding flies when he dies. He's a lot like Envy in that when you kill 1 chunk of him, he splits into 2 a certain number of times, but he's very easy. Especially this version, actually, I find him easier. But here's a fortune-telling machine. I figured we don't really need this since we need the Polaroid to actually, to actually get to the final area. But later I come back to it because I remembered you can actually get soul hearts from that too, which obviously is something that I really want. Because these freaking white leeches are the bane of my existence. These are some of the more annoying enemies for me in the game. But it's okay, because they're dead. Now right through that door is the second to last boss. I'll save who it is for when we get there, because actually it's weird. It makes sense if you know the story, which I can't really go over because I don't have enough time right now. But I might go over it in the next Binding of Isaac video. We'll see. Anyway, I'm just fishing for soul hearts right now. You can see how the trinket's dropping right there. The curved horn on the right gives you more damage. Burnt penny gives you a chance of getting a bomb when you collect pennies. The fork, I believe, raises your attack speed. The crystal skull teleports you when you're down to 1/2 of a heart. And the crystal ball is one of my favorite items in the game. What that does is it basically reveals the entire map to you. It also gives you either a soul heart or a tarot card. Very useful for these stages. And I would have stayed. Oh, but hold on, let me explain two things. First off, second last boss is actually Isaac, which is weird because he's the main character. So, you know, think about the symbols here. You're basically fighting yourself. So you are your own worst enemy. But I mean, you can look up the whole theories behind that later. Now, Isaac is ordinarily very hard. He's a very hard boss because each of those little tiny tears does a whole heart of damage. But since we have 2 bullet shields, that blocks most of the tears from actually hitting us. Also, the blue candle, or the blue candle, burns any tears along the way. So that sort of acts as a shield as well. It's incredibly useful. So I got pretty lucky against Isaac here. He's got 3 forms. You're seeing him here. I actually feel like the third form is the easiest. He starts flying, summons holy rays of light from heaven, and he summons these little angel babies, angel fetuses. But thankfully we had a pretty good build, so he wasn't too hard to take down. Or he's not too hard. Speaking in future tense here. And almost there. Come on, there he goes. He's down. So I'm glad that I got to take him down so easily. But we ain't done yet. Once you beat Isaac while holding the Polaroid, wait for it. Wait for it. You unlock the final dungeon, which is the chest. The chest, yes. So at the start of this area, you are given 4 chests, 4 locked chests, which you can open, and hopefully they'll give you items that'll help you with the final boss. Now we got, I'm being very quick here. So let's see, we got the Book of Sins, which gives us 1 random, shit, too much is going on right now. I'll explain those items later. But this is the final boss right here. Q-Kid. Q-Kid, he's actually a playable character, and I'll explain his significance when I play with him in 2 videos from now. But he's a souped-up version of Isaac, and I'm looking back at this, and I have no idea how I was able to like play this quickly and do so much damage in a short amount of time. I feel like I was actually doing very well in this boss fight. Very well. You can just see how quickly I move in there. But I do feel proud of this fight. It was a good fight. But he basically has the same attack patterns as Isaac. He has homing tears, which are the big blue ones. Those ones right there. He stands still, which is very, very helpful. He starts flying during his final form. Summons the angel fetuses. Really, he's very similar to Isaac. But the reason I was able to teleport right into this room is because I had the Emperor Tarot card, which is a godsend. A godsend in this final dungeon because it lets you skip the entire area. Just lets you skip straight to the boss. So that was the best tarot card I could have gotten at that point. Very helpful. And you can see we just beat the final boss. By the way, this was actually my first time fighting him, so I'm pretty proud I was able to beat him on my first try. And we unlocked 2 items there. Cain's Eye for beating Q-Kid with Cain, and Dad's Key for beating the final boss in general. Now this is the final ending here. Make of it what you will. I actually haven't explored the significance of it myself yet. I'll do that later. But yeah, that's Isaac's dad right there. That's Isaac and his mom. And the chest, finally. And that's it, everybody. That's it. Ooh, so much talking. That was a lot of talking. Oh, alrighty. Well, I hope you enjoyed. I know I was a little bit rushed towards the end there because I was moving very quickly. I was kind of in that zone where I just had to do well. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. If you like what you saw, please leave a like, leave a subscription, comment any one of those. Those are very helpful. I would like to gain some popularity slash publicity in this channel. That would be just very, very helpful of you. But even if you don't want to do those things, I hope you enjoyed anyway. I hope you were able to pick up something useful from this footage here. Some useful stuff for my talks, my tips, all that good stuff. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I actually have 2 more Binding of Isaac videos, much like this one recorded. They are both post-commentary and are planned to be important. I have stuff to talk about in them. And yeah, so I will see you guys in those videos, hopefully. Hope you enjoyed. You have a great day.